but soft. Semula chat mami yang gila. Ini kan? There's live on the left.
Okay, morning again, everyone. So I think a few more people would have come in. So I think we're about ready to start. As I mentioned, this morning's conversation is surrounding the compact projects. And we're going to be starting off the conversation specifically around the backlog compact before we go to the states to invite feedback from the individual states from what we presented, and then have presentations from each of the states for those who have presentations on their compact. All right. So we'll go ahead and start. I think we see Yap on the Chuk. Chuk is here, right? So I think we'll go ahead and start. Okay, so the first thing we wanted to talk about is we're going to talk about the story behind why it is the way it is, and that's where we're essentially going to prompt the conversation for those who want to know more about each part of it. I think one of the things that we saw coming out was, you have projects coming to GEMCO at a certain budget. I think it was Senator who raised that yesterday about the prices of projects and so on. So we're going to get deeper into that today. And we're going to explain what is going to be different with Compact 3 to try and mitigate against that. All right? So let's start here. So I'm actually going to talk you all through each of these graphs. So each of these graphs are basically a difference between the GEMCO approved budgets and the actual projected expenditure, which is based on current projected, and what is projected based on actual tender prices is closer to 14.2 million. Chu, 70 million versus 102. Kosrae, 23 million versus 35, and we know this was the Kosrae hospital, starting off at Pohnpei, the estimates for GEMCO would have been 57 million, and the final projected expenditure is 81, and YAP was 25 million, and the final projected is 40 million. So we want to start here with the conversation, all right? And as I mentioned, a lot of these presentations, we don't want to just be putting information out. We want to have a very open dialogue. Let me see if I get the other mic. Okay. So we want to start with the difference between the two. So let's take Kosrae for example, right? So we're seeing Kosrae started off at 23 million, and the final projected expenditure is 35 million, and the final tender price I think was 33.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. So one of the questions was, what's the difference between the two? Well, one of the big differences between the blue bars and the red bars is that the time difference is massive, right? If you remember when GEMCO, what was the year Kosrae Hospital went to GEMCO? Probably 2017, 2016. Yeah, probably 2017, 2016. So we're talking, and 2012, we imagine that. So when you look at this difference, what it's not pointing out is that this is 2012 and this is 2023, right? So that's the first difference that you're actually looking at, time difference. So a lot of projects, what you find is that they go to GenCo for approval, and there's a perspective of this is what the costs are and whatnot, and there's a lot of energy. Hey, we're going to roll these projects out and whatnot. And then you only get through the pre-construction 5-6 years later. But by that time, all the prices have changed. So therefore, the original budget that was approved by GenCo is now totally different, right? And that's why you have a different situation sort of panning out in terms of the reality, all right? So that's the first thing that we want to point out, that there's a massive time difference between the original GenCo approved budgets and the final projected expenditures based on current market rates. But then we also have to dig a little deeper. Why is that the case for all of them? All the states it's the same. There's a big difference between the two. So then what that tells you is that these projects are taking a long time from conception and going and being approved by GenCo to actually going out to tender. So then another question is, why is it taking so long, right? And that has been one of the biggest challenges that, Robert would have led us on this campaign on to try and reduce the backlog. So a lot of people hear it, right? Reduce the backlog, it's 250 million, get the backlog down. You know what I mean? I mean, when I now came in November 2019, I was on the plane coming to Hawaii. I didn't know where FSM was. And I had to sleep in the airport, and I got an email from Robert before I even arrived. We need to clear this backlog. So I didn't know what it was, you know what I mean? But the mantra has always been clear the backlog. Well, hey, we're a lot further down the conversation now. We've cleared more than 50% of the backlog. But the question that is coming up, which came from our former President Christian in the SNLC last week, and it came yesterday from Senator Monica as well, is what are we going to do different this time? Why is the backlog not going to happen again, right? And what we're saying is that we want to talk about some of the realities that we face. This is not talk anymore, this is not books, this is not theories, this is the reality of what we will have faced. Brunson and I would have spoken about that yesterday as well. There's a reality to implementing, you understand? And there's a reality as to why these backlogs are in place. And every single case is different. I remember someone had asked me, to just give them in a phrase, why is the backlog there? And I meant the problem in each project, though very different, it's always human related. It's always human related. So it's always being able to sit down, understand the challenge that these people are going through, and help them through that conversation. One of the things that my colleague Trevor DeLandre is going to come and talk about when 25 million to 40 million. We went and I worked closely with the YAP guys, and it's such a phenomenal story in YAP. And right now we're headed to actually go in the red by the time September comes up. They're going to be spending all of their allocation. But YAP has an interesting story where originally what we found is that when you look at all these projects, yes, there's a big difference between when GenCo approves and when the project is implemented. But that is for one procurement mechanism. That procurement mechanism is the client designs the project and the contractor builds, right? Here's the problem with that though. If you take that approach across the board, you are at the mercy of consultants, right? So if consultants want to take 6-7 years and keep varying their contract, you will be at the mercy of them. That was what we short-circuited in YAP, right? So when we went and we spent close to 24 million on the wastewater and water treatment plants, when we went there and we got great support from the legislature because they understood that as well, we transitioned from design bid build to design build. Because we realized, remember, we're existing in a commercial environment. So consultants here to make money, just like contractors. So if you give opportunity, which is that they could stay and latch onto a project for 8 years and just collect money, they're going to do that. You have to have that clear intent. I want to get this done now. And that's exactly what happened with the wastewater and water treatment plant. When we went there, those guys were, what did they prepare? A pre-feasibility engineering report. First time I ever heard of that. And when we went, because they were sending in was to do a feasibility report, a post-feasibility report. And then when I went down there, I was like, okay, we want to do a design build. They said, we'll do a design report for you. I was like, no. I already implemented over 20 design build projects. I don't need you to tell me how to do it. So at some point in time, you need that leadership to be able to draw the line and be like, let's get this done. So the conversation is not a simple one, but I want to make it a clear one. And the clear one is that one, there's a difference between the two, showing there's a big lag between when GENCO approves the project and when it actually goes out to tender. And two, there's a consistent lag across the board. And one of the key things, because this would have been prior to when we came to YAP and changed this to design build, all these projects were design build. So the entire FSM program was at the mercy of consultants. And as I say, it's not to say that consultants are bad people. They're businessmen like everyone else. You understand? But let me give you a perspective. For the COM projects, those designs took close to 5 years, I think, after going through Kosrae Hospital. That design took, we probably finished a couple of years ago, so probably about 8 years in the making. That can't be. You can't implement a large program, a large infrastructure program like that. You understand? And this is coming from a case insurance of where myself, Gerald, and Trevor is from, where everything we do is design build. Now, it's not to say, don't get confused. It's not that I'm saying the solution is change all these things to design build. There are some projects that design build is not suited for, right? And you do have to have the ability and judgment to be able to make that decision, right? But there are some cases where it is able to short circuit that process. So instead of taking 5 years in the water market, and you have contractors who are better suited to handle risks like that. Hospitals is one. Hospitals, in Trinidad we have, what, Trevor, about 17 hospitals. Each hospital is probably about 5 times the size of Kosrae Hospital. We have a lot of hospitals in Trinidad, right? Probably because we have so much high blood pressure, you know? But all of those hospitals, including myself, the SACA helps too, you know? All of these projects, one of these hospitals probably costs somewhere between 150 to 200 million per hospital. Not one of those hospitals has ever been done design bid build. Not one. Every single one is design build. Right? So what you have is a very aggressive environment, construction environment, where people are competing to be able to beat, because the thing with design build is that it's large projects. You don't do design build for a project that's going to cost you $50,000, right? Design build goes to large contractors who are custom building hospitals, designing and building hospitals. You bring them on board, boom, they get good. But the key thing is you have to be very specific in your employer's requirements and very clear. So that's a few things that I wanted to touch on. I have a few other stories in each one of them that will then start to tie the entire thing together. What is one of the differences that's going to happen in Compact 3? Why the backlog? So if it is we're taking 5 years and the prices are so different, here's the question. If you sent a project to GEMCO 1 year, what informed? Because what you're going to GEMCO with is, I think it's going to cost this much. Perfect example is the YAP water storage tanks. When I went to GEMCO, that was 1.8 million. For a 1 million gallon tank, restoration, impossible. You understand? And then after we now had to come up, the final price was 6.1 million. right? And that's market rates. So what that says, and if you look at and listen to what JCRP and Robert and they always say, the difference with the Compact 3 is the greater emphasis on preparation, project preparation. So it's making sure that when you come to GEMCO, you're not coming to sell them on seismic resistant design and any stuff. You're coming with fully prepared documents. So they due diligence report that tells you that you own the land. Don't send something to GEMCO and you don't own the land. You know? That's like us just coming here and being like, let's build up this set. But you know you're outside, why you going to go to GEMCO and say, you understand what I'm saying? So that's the first thing, that's due diligence report. The second one is the environmental baseline assessment, which is, are you building on critical E&D? You know, are you building on a mangrove? You have to have something that's exemplified by EPA permit, right? The other thing is you have to cater for climate change. You can't come to GEMCO and say, well, hey, I want 5 million for this project, and then a year later, hey, I need 10 million because I didn't cater for climate change. I didn't cater for the sea level rise in FSM 36, 3 point something mm a year, right? So you have to have something accounting for that. And we're going to talk about reinforced concentration pathways and how you actually design for climate change. Preliminary design report, very important. That tells you whether your cost is realistic or not. You have a clear basis of design, compliance with US codes and standards until the FSM building code comes up, then we're going to be compliant with FSM building code. And then you have the supporting drawings and specs. But in the case of a design build, you will have employers' requirements. And then from that, you then have a costing analysis, but supporting that will be a basis of costing report. And it was something that we saw specifically in FAA projects that are required, that already gives, it doesn't just tell them what the project is going to take 10 million. It's telling you how they got that 10 million. That, hey, we looked at all of these projects in the region, this is the cost per square foot. You look at using the AACE and AST and 1667 and whatnot, using those parameters, this is how we came up with that. One of the guys that are really good at that are Juno and Associates, who we brought in for Kosrae and gave a very good basis of cost and report. And then an economic analysis. Economic analysis is very important, and it's often overlooked. Why is it important? You don't want a situation where you're spending $10 million for a road that goes nowhere. If it goes to no one and it does nothing, then it's not going to be economically feasible because you're spending $10 million for nothing, right? You have to have road user costs that offset that, which is based on the traffic, EABT, right? And then being able to answer these 7 outputs then becomes a package that GEMCO could then have to say, hey, we approve this project and move forward. Now the next question will then be, where do you get these 7 outputs from? Where do you get this from? Right? So one of the good things is that in implementing the projects for the International Development Banks, you see that side of the process very clearly. And we're going to be talking a little more about that this evening in terms of what it takes to build sustainably. People talk about sustainable projects and sustainable development a lot, but we're going to talk about what that actually means. In other words, you're not just building at the expense of everyone. It's these 3 P's: people, planet, profit. Right? People, it's socially sound, you're not interfering with anyone's land. Planet, you're not damaging the planet in the process of it. And profit, the project is economically viable. Right? And that then comes to GEMCO. So that you don't have a situation where where you have a situation where 10 projects come to GEMCO, and GEMCO now has to develop this capacity to do technical reviews of what is submitted. And it's like, well, what you would find is you will have a back and forth going on with GEMCO at the beginning that the projects will never get off the ground. And after a while, phone calls will start to happen. Hey, why my project not going through? And so to avoid that bottleneck, we let you know beforehand, there's a checklist you have to cover before it goes to GEMCO. All right? And we're not saying why I gave the context originally is that we're not saying that is the only reason for the difference between budget and actual, but it's a big one. Where a lot of the projects that we're implementing, we're realizing this level of upfront planning didn't happen. And this was something we just recently completed for the Guinea Bridge. We shared it, you know where you go. And it's not that you have finally, and then this of course will then start to bleed into what we're going to talk about in session 11 on Friday, which is, Bruce, if you have to develop these 7 outputs, what would your org structure look like if you had people to do that? What if you outsource some of it, right? And what is the ideal model going into Compact 3 to be able to deliver these efficiently? And I always tell people, I will never ask someone to do something if I've never done it myself, right? A lot of people said at the beginning the battle was impossible to clear, there's no way to clear it and this kind of thing. In Trinidad, for a given year, I was telling Farhad about that, in HGC, we ran 83 contracts on average every year. 83 contracts. When we dropped below 80, something was wrong. Right? Why can't it be like that? Why can't we do that? Right? So it's a matter of first understanding that the belief has to be there that it could be done, and then putting the systems in place and the capacity to make it happen. And as I say, the bottom line with all the backlog everywhere has always been personalities. So it's not to think that there's some structural issue that in FSM we can't build a FSM, we do our contractors. All of those are problems, but it's easy to complain and come up with the problems. The difficult thing is to come up with the solutions, right? And so far what I've seen is the solutions are available, readily available in FSM. You now have another conversation, which is projected expenditure versus obligated funds. Well, our coffers are dry, right? So the projected expenditure was 14 million, we spent 13.9, and we're way in the red, more or less. And that's where you want to be going into Compact 3, right? Chuk, we're going to talk about Chuk a little bit. As we say, the majority of this is the Chuk hospital, which is 70 million. So we want to be cognizant of that. Kosrae is in red as well, which is a good thing, right? Yeah is 40 million, Pompey, 81 million, 34 million spent. So the difference is about 46 million. Let me jump to the next slide that will show that, right? So this is the difference, right? So National Kosrae is looking good. Pompey 46 million, but currently Pompey has 3 projects that are closing on the 13th of July, and those projects will amount to around 45 million. So once those grant requests come into those projects, Pompey is going to be in the red as well, right? Once Pompey goes in the red, and then the question is, this 10 million in YAP. Let's talk a little bit about the 10 million in YAP, which is going to spark another conversation. When we went to YAP, based on the request from the governor and the legislature, we went down there and worked with the guys. Yes, there was challenges with the PMO manager there. And we worked with YAP, and we've recruited someone new who's due to come on board. But when we went down there, I spent about 2 months in YAP. I love YAP. YAP is like my home away from home. I was telling Lieutenant Governor that I always carry my bag of wisdom everywhere I go. I love that. Once the program manager was removed, the accusations then started to come and say the staff isn't working. Where's Willie? Willie, right? There was a staff of about 6 people, and they said the staff isn't working. The staff is no good. I love a challenge, So I was like, great. 28 million we draw down in 2 months. Yeah? We evaluated the wastewater and water treatment plant, which were 2 designers, one of the most advanced tenders that we've seen, in 2 days. 2 days we finished the evaluations. We worked a lot about 1 minute. So the issue wasn't the staff. The issue was leadership. So that's one of the things that we wanted to point out. What are the other 10 million? Well, there are 3 schools in here that have been approved. Each one, the estimates is about 9 million. So this balance of schools are going to total around 30 million. The RFPs were done since April. Design build, we got support from the legislature, right? There were some issues with the last consultant. We got the geotechnical, the guys to separate in April. I spoke to USAS a couple of weeks ago. They said, oh, I actually didn't know I got that. Send it to me again. What? 3 months gone just like that? And then the backlog is our problem, right? We are the cause of the backlog. We're supposed to be out to tender for these. These guys are supposed to be red by 20 million by now. Remember I promised our Vice Speaker that? I'm afraid to go by our different components. Is it manageable? Absolutely. For the Kosrae Hospital, USAID has been fantastic. They have worked with us for 2 years, and boy, it was a battle. You know what I mean? It was a battle. But step by step, they were there with us. The first design boost was how much? About 460 something comments. I remember Robert always used to laugh about that. You know, it was like 400 something. But they worked with us and we went through all of them. And they worked with us. So again, what's the problem? Personality. It's not organization, it's personality. So it's about understanding when you interact with people, there's a people problem. So when you come in, you have to have someone with the leadership to be able to be what they call in project management nowadays, agile. Right? To get it done. Find a way to get it done. And the last thing I wanted to leave everyone with, I actually gave Bruce a hug yesterday after the groundbreaking ceremony because I know how long he's been fighting with the Kosrae Hospital. And to finally have it reach groundbreaking, I know would have been quite a relief. And I told Bruce the spill-on effect that Kosrae Hospital has had in the other states. Because no one believed Kosrae Hospital would have happened. No one believed we would have gotten the grant, right? But it has happened. And that now sets the way for the other states. If it could happen there, it brings relief back, it brings belief back and whatnot. They have a question they tend to ask. That gets called yesterday, Senator. The issue that we have, the reason for having this conference, is what we found is in the States, there's a lot of suffering in silence. People go through trouble, but they go through it and hold it to themselves. The conference is here to say you're not alone, right? And there's a lot of learnings that happens across all of the states. We're not now starting the backlog clearing. We've cleared almost 50% of it. And there's a lot of learnings that came from that. So you are not alone. And we don't want you to suffer in silence. All right? So I want to thank you all for your time. I just wanted to give that as a backdrop to the conversation that we're having around backlog and how we move forward before we have the actual states come and present, depending on if we need to drill down. Now, we do want to be cognizant of time. We are going to transition to the break at 10:30. But at this time, before I transition to the state's presentation, I just want to open it up for any questions that anyone may have from what they've seen so far. All right? So thank you.
It's a minor concern, Sandara, on the progression of the packages before we submit to Jamco about the financial part of the packaging. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So there are 2 aspects of the financing, as we mentioned. It's the costing and the economic analysis. You want me to talk about 2 of them?
The source, just the source. Where did the source from?
The source of funds? Okay. I think it was Pompey recently. I could be wrong, but it could be one of the other states, where the grant request came in, where's that money? You know what I mean? You have this big check, is it in FSM Bank? You know what I mean, that we could just draw down on it? You know, we want to clarify that, right? We want to clarify that. So, just as with the international development banks, but banks are a little different because they do send top-up coffers on a quarterly basis. Compact operates differently, where there's a bank in Hawaii, all right, and what they do is they pay based on application. So let's say, so the first step that has to happen is legislature appropriates the money, right? So therefore it complies with Pompey State Code or each of the different codes. That's the first thing. The second thing after that, when you get that bill, is then you issue letter of award. When you sign a contract, let's take the first example. They ask for mobilization, 10%. So the first thing you think of, boy, I don't have the money, and it's true. You don't send an FSM bank or a bank account. But what it is a commitment to pay. So when it is you sending that application for payment to the Office of Compact Management, they then send that to OIA, who has that money. They then put it in a respective holding account in Hawaii, and then that draws down over into FSM Bank, right? So it's basically on a stage-to-stage basis that payment is done based on the request. So it's not that they're going to upfront, if your project is 10 million, or it is not going to upfront 10 million to you in FSM Bank. It doesn't work like that. It works based on application. Okay. Which one are the packages? The source of funds for the packages?
Before we package a proposal, we will need money. For our current compact, we get the funding before we package for design services. We get the funding, we design, we send funding. But in a case like this, where do we get the funding from? In order to finance our package before we sell it out in December.
Okay, so that definitely will have to come from Compact. That will have to come from Compact. But it depends on what arrangement that you have, because you could have it where you actually hire in from a consultant, where you have a consultant prepare the entire thing for you, or you have...
I think what Iso is asking is about where the money will come from to enable the PMO office to go through all of those 7 implementation plan. What doesn't have to do with that? We have to keep looking ahead. If we don't need it next year, if we know, for example, that you're going to upgrade your hospital, in 2025, and in 2024, you're going to need a consulting company to scope out all those things and do the assessment that Shankara mentioned, and we have to put it in the annual implementation plan for 2020.
And so either be, the PMO manager will make a determination of how much of it he could do in-house, and then how much he needs to outsource. And then that's just specified either contractual services or based on the actual salaries that you would have. Yeah, but you make sure and send that in your budget the financial year before. Okay.
Thank you once again. I'd like to welcome each and everyone. Thank you all. As the senator from Home Bay alluded to, I think in the FSM, we cannot comply with the codes and standards of the use. Is there a way where we can downgrade or do away with these standards?
Well, so I'll answer it in 2 weeks. Right? What I can say for us with all the US code, that isn't always the case. Now, it is a long-term conversation, and I think it's session 7 or 8 where Robert's going to talk about the building code to try and talk about how in the long term FSM is looking to build its own building code to make that conversation much more efficient. So that way you're not using US codes, you're still the same process, because no matter what building or bridge you do on, there's a standard set of design formula that you have to use in order to come up with the materials. But the difference would be that you will be informed by data collected specifically for FSM, which will make for more efficient designs. Right? So in the building code conversation, they're going to be dealing with that situation on a long-term basis. So in other words, the FSM code will be much more efficient than the US code. Right? So it's not that you're getting a less standard. The standard is the same in terms of compliance with engineering and life safety, right? Fire safety, right? Compliance with geotechnical requirements and so on. All of that remains, right? But the difference is the data you're using to design is not data off the shore of California or off the shore of Miami. You'll be having data specifically, not just for Pompey as you explained to Senator, but for Madeleine Inn, for Kitchen. It will be separated.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shankara, for your excellent presentation, and good morning, everyone. This is one question. I asked a question yesterday, and so we can do our part in Congress, and I'm glad that we have the opportunity to listen. That chart over there only shows the compact funded project, is that correct? Imagine if we include all the other projects, infrastructure, that would even be more lopsided. So that's one concern I think we should all think about. You mentioned that, and I listened very carefully you a couple times, and in the end you conclude that one of the major problems is personality. Last night at a dinner I asked, and I said that, we should come together. It's good that we have a dinner and just talk to each other. We're a team. Whether you're at the state PMO or national PMU or a contractor, subcontractor, we have a role, very important role to play. I'm so glad you bring it up because I'm just trying to understand. I'm educating myself here. But it's telling that at every position, we need to really work together. If you say personality, then really there is solution. If it's a personality, then my question would be, because when we talk about personality, it's going up in the hierarchy of charge. If it comes to the Q12, but it's inexcusable that we say it's a personality problem that prevent our projects from moving forward. So that's the first observation I wish to make. Respectfully ask and kindly ask that we think about that. When you work in your office, listen to this presentation and ask yourself, or myself, what can we do to reverse that picture we see there? That's money that we need to go to improve the fiscal procedure agreement. Because I know there are requirements of the FPA, for example, bonding requirements. Businesses in the FSM cannot meet the requirements to bond their business or insurance. So I just wish to flag, many of you probably are not on the same page as most of the leaders on compact. But first of all, we have 4 months window to review all the resolutions that were approved by GEMCO. And we have the opportunity to flag those resolutions that are not helpful to us. There are many of them. Robert will remember several of them that also hamper or impede our progress on our implementation. We are paying very close attention to that task. We have 4 months to review all those, is that right? 4 months, Robert, to review all those resolutions. And I think that's a welcome opportunity for us to address our side. A question raised a while ago and extended by a speaker. What can we do on all the state standards requirements that are imposed upon us, our government, that we cannot meet, but we continue to insist? And we're going to flag those. There are numbers of resolutions. I know personally, having been on the Trust Fund Committee some years back, I know that there are several resolutions that would be very helpful in our case. Also, secondly, the marked and a significant improvement in the fiscal procedure agreement that relates to the disbursement and the prerequisites for any sector disbursement. I think we spent a lot of time at the highest level of our government, at the national level, addressing that part between government. And I think that resulted in a very high level communication between the President's office and OIA.
Secretariat. So I just want to reflect that, again, I raised that question yesterday to listen and see what are the issues. And thank you for sharing those. I respectfully ask that we all go to help. I don't want negotiations that we feel that will address some of the problems that we have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. So yeah, as we mentioned, there have been some sticking points that we have come across. The bonding was a big one, but it was something that we have surmounted, and so far it has been working well. Is it working perfect? No way, because when you compare it to all the other funding agencies like World Bank and ADB, a contractor will just have. But then for the FAA program, besides the conversation, sort of controls that are in place. I do know that from what Robert has been telling us that there is a much improved situation with the Compact 3 with bonding, and I think everyone will be looking forward to that. We are looking forward to that part of it. But I would still say that that was also one of the issues that everyone would hit us with in the beginning with the backlog, why nothing could have gotten done. But then here we are with that and still got it done. So it's a hindrance, but I don't think it's stopping this. But if the question is clearing this backlog, that's definitely not it. But it is something that does impede competition, and that is part of I think one of the sessions where we're talking about one of the things we're hoping that PNU could do better in Compact 3 is to provide capacity building and training support for contractors, local contractors and staff, to be able to get contractors to build a much more robust construction market in FSM from a long-term perspective. So I would say that, yes, there are some things. With respect to each of the states, absolute in each of the PMOs lies with, yes.
Sorry. Yeah, it is not that Chief would know. We had a lot of discussions on the bonding issue during the negotiations, but it is not that we have a solution right now. What we were able to negotiate is a slight window under which the US have agreed that they would look at our bonding policy. But first we have to get our bonding policy legally adopted. And we have drafted one, and we have actually had inputs from the PMO offices. Vice President, we will need to put it to your office because the bonding policy has to be signed by the President, the Secretary of DTCI, and also the Secretary of the US and OIA, let's say, in terms of this is our bonding policy. But we do have a very good precedent in which the Republic of the Marshall Islands followed that process, and their bonding policy was formally adopted and then agreed with the US. So we still have to go through that process. But for now, as Shankara points out, it's not that it's a big constraint. We don't see that as the cause of any carryover. We do recognize, however, that it would be a lot easier for the contractors if we have a kind of more favorable, but more reasonable, let's say, and more consistent with international practice than we have right now. So just to make that clear, it's not that we have solved the problem, but we have created at least a window of opportunity for us to get a better deal on the bonding. All right, thank you.
Ken?
Based on the bonding issue. The other issue that I wanted to raise is, as we look at all these ways, because it's the backbone of our economic development and growth. And we expect that a lot of that money will come into Kosrae, and it will actually benefit the people of Kosrae in terms of employment, as well as purchases of construction from outside. And so how do we make sure that when these projects do happen, and we know that the local construction companies and the local companies do not have the financial capability to be able to be included in these projects, how do we make sure that they employ our people, that they purchase from within the states, so that there is that actual benefit? We don't want $40 million going outside of the state Because we're looking at $40 million and we're saying, so where did it go? How did it benefit us in the end? So this is, is there any means that you guys ensure that this doesn't happen while in these projects? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So I'll answer it in two different aspects. One, at the end of the day, whatever we do has to be in strict compliance with the FPA. All right. So whatever agreement that would have been signed to come back, strict compliance with that. Under the FPA, what is allowed for projects of these sizes is absolute open competitive bidding. So it's public, right? So which means anyone could bid, anyone could get evaluated, and basically each of these states do have some requirements that they can put in place by law to set up some sort of controls of, because what you're talking about is local content, right? Pohnpei State Code actually is quite advanced. It's a really well drafted code. And there's a section that actually deals with that, section 8, all right? Whether it goes to the extent that you're talking about, I'm not 100% sure, all right? But I know it does touch on it, all right? So what I would advise is, it's a state-by-state conversation. So I would advise that, you talk to the AG who would have actually developed that code and talk to them about the implications of Section 8 in Pohnpei Code in particular. I don't know what the equivalent ones are for the other states, but that's the part that deals specifically with advertised locally for 30 days, I believe it is, Lieutenant Governor, yeah? I think it's 30 days, and if no one locally bids it, then they could hire someone externally. I think Kosrae is similar to that as well, right, Lieutenant? Yeah, so that's how they control that side of the local content. Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk a bit about it? Yeah.
So for Kosrae, there's a requirement of 25% of the materials required to be purchased locally. So I think that's what we have. But we need to increase that, I think.
So it's the point of Senator that the answer lies within the state laws. Yeah? Robert, anything else you want to add? Any other questions? All right, so let's transition then to the different state presentations. I do have two presentations here right now. So what we'll do is we'll run through it state by state, and then we'll open up for questions from everyone. All right. So let's start with my home away from home. Yeah. All right. So maybe if you could come and let's just talk for and then we'll do Pohnpei after. All right. Ready?
I'd like to pay my respects to Vice President and national leaders, as well as state leaders. My name is William Lundo. I am an employee of the Young State Government. I work under the Office of Planning and Budget, and I am the acting PMO manager. I would like to express my thanks and gratitude to Sankara, because without his guidance and help, I would not be standing here to present our projects in Young State. Our Young State compact funded projects that are under, prepared for the RFP. It's already with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Hawaii. We have some project. One project is under preliminary design, and we also have projects that we are going to reactivate. There are 6 of them. Okay, starting with the ongoing projects. We have two of these. Number one is the Yap water storage, February 15, 2023. And end of contract is June 14, 2025. The contract duration is 850 days. And our contractor is Canton Construction Corporation. This project has two sites. We have the site work for tank number one, which is located in Golole. And tank two, these are existing tanks, located in Numar. The site work will involve fencing the perimeter of the two project sites to secure them for the phase two. The main work for phase one is the construction and installation of a 1,000 gallon malted distilled water tank. That tank is going to be installed in the Mar, right adjacent to the existing tank number 2, which has a capacity of, that tank number 2 has a capacity of 1 million gallons. Next slide, please. Okay. Second of our ongoing projects is the Yap water treatment plant. The existing water treatment plant has a capacity of 400 gallons per minute. We have one accelerator tank which has a rated capacity of 210 gallons. The project location is in Vietnam Road, and notice to proceed was issued on 30 days. Our contractor is DTCI Incorporated. The description of the project is, we are going to, we have right now one accelerator treatment plant, as I said earlier. This one rated capacity of 210 gallons per minute. And we have two units of Waterboy WB 133. Rated capacity of 100 gallons per minute. There are two of them. So the 400 GPM can be supplied by the three water treatment. The existing water treatment plant will be replaced by 2 units of Wistec Aquarius with a rated capacity of 360 gallons per minute. So multiply that by 2, it's 720 gallons per minute. Next slide, please. That's 87. Next. The third ongoing project location is in Colombia. Notice to proceed was issued dated June 1st, 2023, and end of contract is May 30, 2025. Contract duration is about 30 days. Our contractor is DTCI Incorporated. The existing MO tank will be replaced. That's already an old. Then that one has an average flow rate of 170,000 gallons per day. The tank was expanded in 1986 and doubled the capacity to 340 gallons per day. That existing MO tank will be replaced with a new modular package sewage treatment system. The work requirements included the projected average hourly flow rate projected for 2040 is 441 gallons per minute, which translates into 635,000 gallons per day. Next slide, please. That's the photo of the existing sewage treatment plant. Next, we have the projects prepared for RFP, request for proposals. As I mentioned earlier, it's already in the hands of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and hopefully the final review can be completed next month, as promised by Charles. Okay, we have campus improvement. These are design build projects. We transition from the design build to the design build. We have 3 campuses. Yap High School. There are several additional buildings. Particularly, we have the recreation center. We have home economics building. We have science building. We have electrical facility and also toilet facility. We included in the improvement also the access roads, parking areas, and of course landscaping. That's the Yap High School. The Colonial Middle School, we have the administration building. We have the middle school and science building. And then we have 2 units of the primary classroom buildings. Of course, with the toilet facility and also the electrical facility. There's going to be also access roads, bus parking area, and landscaping. For the Wally High School, that's in the outer ends. We have administration building. We have the pavilion for their gathering, community gatherings, and other celebration like graduation. We have also this facility. One thing that we consider for the Wally High School is we'll have some kind of rainwater harvesting, and also solar energy is being envisioned to be part of the improvement. We will not have any more access road there because there's only one. Even I think we don't need access road. Next, another slide. Okay, we have one project that is under preliminary planning. And this is the public transportation system maintenance shop facility with office space. The size of the project was actually approved by GENCO on November 4th, 2022. That was last year. With the resolution 2022, that's true. There is already a concept design for this building, and they are looking at the project component is with 12 feet wide and canopy. This is the pre-engineered steel structure. I avoid to use the pre-engineered metal building because we will be using for the wall panels fiber reinforced plastic, which is not going to rust, including the roofing. And of course, the cladding of the existing facilities as well as going to work on, after the investigation. For this one, we need to outsource. We have some geotechnical firms already on the island. So we will take advantage of the time that they are still there so that we can have a good price offer. Okay, now we have the projects that needs to be reactivated. We have 6 early childhood education centers for the outer islands. We have Satawal, Kodaray, Tiig, Motigay, Yurisit, and Nato. Among these six outer island early childhood integration center, Satawal is the largest DTCI center. Next slide, please. Okay, the challenges that we are facing right now with our ongoing projects. And actually for upcoming projects, which varies that from our previous submitted bid proposal. We got only 3 for the yard water storage and 2 off-island or foreign contractors and 1 on-island contractors. Same with the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant. We had several meetings with the local contractors because we really encourage them to participate, even they don't qualify at that time. But we are encouraging them to make tie-ups in some part of the project, and that's what we are doing now. And with our contractors right now, we are facing problem with hiring of foreign workers, especially with the projects that our contractor DTCI already have on hand. They have actually four projects on hand now. And they are short of skilled workers. So, of course, we give priority also to local skilled workers. There's going to be, for every position, 30 days announcement before we have. Okay. Questions and comments?
So unfortunately, we only have 10 more minutes for this session. And the next session that we have is actually a marathon session from 10:45 to 1 p.m. This is to cover all the international development bank projects and so on. But we do have some slack. There is still 4 days. There is some slack throughout the conference where we'll be able to make that. So just for the break is from 10:30 to 10. We'll call break and we'll try and squeeze in the other 2 states right after. Okay, so can I have Chuk come up and do the presentation? Albert?
Wait, can you give me the tablet? Yeah, report. Yeah, 10:45. One.
Thank you, Shakar. My respects to all our church, traditional government leaders. Thank you, Kosrae, for hosting us. On behalf of our two state governors, the Honorable Governor Nalu, we wish to extend our gratitude. Good morning. My name is Alvin Mori. I am not the project manager. I am not an engineer. I am merely a messenger. I'm with your PMO, and I am fiscal ops. Let's go ahead and dive right in. The state, or my bosses, wanted to give a brief background on our office, just to give you a clear picture on the beginning of our office to today. Of course, as you may know, our office was established in 2016 to implement and manage all compact funded infrastructure projects. Now, this has always been an issue with many of us. We want to cross out that 1 or 2 words, compact funded projects. We want to manage all projects for the state. During the transition from PMU to PMO, the state hired a consulting firm, Solar, in 2017, and they were able to
sort of compile all our projects and put it into some clear documents that the state can handle. It was, of course, the transition was a difficult one, but fortunately, we're making some real progress. So in 2019, our good friends from PMU started sending assistance similar to how the YAP program is handled at the moment. From 2016 to 2019, it was quite difficult to hire project manager, contract specialists. So we were fortunate, and it wasn't until September and October that we finally filled those two key positions. Only then was OIE, they allowed us to move forward with all the projects. Just a few months after recruiting those two key positions, we were able to secure contracts for the projects that were identified by the national government and state. And I'm happy to also share that the 5 dispensaries, Point Bay State PMO assisted heavily from the geotechnical services to actual management support. And for the schools, PMO assisted with the concept design, and as far as procurement process is concerned, they were also involved. And of course, USA's has been there since day one, through ITRs or work agreements for independent technical reviews, programmatic support, and now we're looking at their involvement with the True State Hospital. And if PMU has comments on that, we'll get into that as well. Okay, our ongoing projects. Those 5 pilot project dispensaries, 3 have been awarded, and 4 IMF projects are being handled by our planning office. The dispensaries, we're not even at 20% yet. I think it's worth noting that these ongoing construction projects sort of highlights our preliminary understanding of compact funds or compact related requirements as far as bonding is concerned, etc., rolled out and start construction. Now, just this month, a grant was also awarded for $2.1 million for an additional 2 dispensaries. Submitted to GEMCO versus reality of prices. Now, 16 renovation projects were originally submitted to GEMCO for $1.2 million. Now, just last month, we were able to go out for RFP for just 4 of them, and it was already almost half of the price of what was submitted. So there's a growing concern on that, and our own leadership is asking why such a difference. So I'm glad that Shankara touched base on that as well. Now the big one, True State Hospital. This is roughly $7 million. And we've gone out for the expression of interest. We've got 6 interested firms or consultants. And they will be handling the study, the assessment, including the concept design of the actual hospital. And I think all our partners want to make sure that there are no issues before we can step into the procurement of construction yet, until we know that this is a feasible project. And of course, USA's, we're working on a work agreement for USA's to assist in this stage of the project. The 4 schools, which are the pilot projects, they estimate about $24 million. Finalizing the contract, or sorry, the design and the sending over. It should be by July when we can start talking about requests for proposals for construction. And of course, the remaining 16 renovation projects, they vary from roofing, fencing, and additional classrooms. We have 2 additional dispensaries on the anvil that we want to construct as soon as possible as well. Geotechnical services is a main issue for the state of Chuuk, considering the unique challenge that we have. Upcoming projects. I shouldn't say upcoming, it should only say approved projects, because these are already GEMCO approved, and these are state approved. The only issue at this time is that our pilot projects have shown that, well, we can get into the challenges, but right now, limited contractors, as well as our own capacity, have sort of halted our progress on these remaining projects. And for the dispensaries and schools, the designs, it's more of a copy-paste design. We will just use the same designs for all these different projects, sort of copy-paste. How much do we have? I'm glad you asked me, Carl. Ongoing projects, it's about 105 million. Approved projects, which you just saw, is about 79 million. How much do we have left? 102 million. There's a difference of $82 million. I hope during these discussions we can address this not only backlog but shortfall of the approved projects. I'm glad to share that Chuuk State has no challenges at this time. Similar to all of the sister states, our contractors, we have limited contractors, not only through qualifications, but manpower, skilled laborers, and etc. Our relationship with PI. We need skilled laborers back into the country. The locals, they wanna bid for the jobs, but they just don't have the capacity. State versus national versus international. No, this is not a challenge for a fight. We have a lot of issues at the state level, including national and international. Our regulations, our policies, our communication. It's sort of it's an ongoing concern, or we can improve on the relationship. I know that we have our state policies or laws that sort of contradicts national and international regulations. So this is something that we've sort of discussed and we want to improve on. And like I said, Chuuk State has this unique challenge, and I'm glad the Vice President mentioned no island left behind. But we have 40 municipal islands and many more inhabited. So we're looking at over 50 islands that Chuuk State wished not to be left behind. We spoke about this. Testing facilities. Currently, our contractors for the dispensaries are facing challenge as far as materials. And we hope the state and national can sort of merge and think about something to put in place to address this issue. This is a concern for Chuuk State. limited land. We have 18 dispensaries, or close to 20 dispensaries and 20 schools. Well, what do you guys want to do about all these projects? Fortunately, there are cleared land, upcoming projects. What are we going to do with them? Where are we going to put them? There were even talks that, hey, how about we floating schools or floating dispensaries? I don't know. Yes, we have to think innovative, but at the same time realistic. These 5 issues that the state wanted me to share is something that is an ongoing process. We are working on it more currently, and we hope the states, our sister states, and the national government can assist in sort of answering or relieving the state of these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alvin. Thank you for that. So, as I mentioned, we're a little behind time. So it's 10:37 now. So what we'll do is we'll push back the second session instead of starting at 10:45. We'll start at 11. All right. As I mentioned, that next session is quite intense, trying to cover all the different projects. I think everyone's looking forward to, hearing from everyone. So we'll start at 11, so we'll allow everyone for a break, and we'll start back at 11 again. As I said, the other 2 states and feedback from everyone will squeeze in another session over the next 2 weeks to allow that feedback as well. All right, so we'll break and meet back at 11. Okay? All right, thanks guys.
Copy it and paste it in the description. Now we're down to 1 more. Ready to go? Score. But right now it's a break, so yep. So once the break is over, you can just go live. Yeah. So when you take your Starlink dish to your office, no ways. Your charger. Fine. So,
presentation. Yeah, you can help it. He comes. 22 years ago, we call him a pro. Huh?
it's already come on.
Yeah. My friend really wanted to buy one of them. Yeah, they want to take, yeah, either big case. Mike doesn't have a license to sell. They have a license to sell. It's getting closer to our time. Laughing this session. We're going to be laughing this session. spending too much time on. Yeah.
Я не люди сьогодні. Yok ka blok ka? Ni?
Okay, so it's 5 to 11, so just a reminder everyone, we're going to start in 5 minutes. Okay, so 5 minutes.
No conflict. Are you live already? No. Set up like good. Yeah, we need. Okay, steady. For now, stabilize. For now, temporary, until we get the real equipment of big camera. This is a really unprofessional. Sorry, what's your name? Oh, Steve. Yeah, actually I have an uncle here, but I haven't met him. Tell me your way. Doctor Joel. Stay.
At the quarantine facility.
What?
At the hospital.
Hospital?
There's a home island. We stay together at the hospital. But you're
Yeah, it came around January. I tried messaging him because I think he's changed his account or something. I think I'm friends with his old account. Both him and his wife. It's funny because when I was in high school, I used to make fun of the kids. No?
This one can take 100 to
240.
That's why when you go to Australia, you go to steel works.
Someone bribing me for styling about 224.
Yeah, but it is fine for New Zealand. Yeah,
Yeah, it's fine, but it just feels brave to who reflected it.
Okay, so it's 11 o'clock, everyone. So if I just want to ask everyone just to come back to their seats. We're about to start session 5. As I mentioned, all the discussions we had about compact, we still have 2 that's outstanding. And the feedback session, we're going to be squeezing that into tomorrow's session. So we'll be hearing from Kosrae and Pompey, and then the feedback for all the states at the time to 1 p.m. We're going to be looking specifically at the international development and several different infrastructural projects which are coordinated at the national level, implemented as projects for the states. So we do have a lot of presentations to go through. It's 7 in total, so I ask that you all just bear with us as we go through each one. We're going to start with the roads program, which is funded by World Bank and ADB. We're then going to transition to maritime, which is World Bank. Then we're going to talk, we're going to make a session for digital, World Bank, CEDA, CPUC's ADB project, and then the FAA program. All right? So just to start us off, we're going to start off with the roads program and then transition to maritime before we go over to digital. So let me hand over to Mr. Trevor DeLandro, who is the project manager for the World Bank Road Rehabilitation Program. Sure.
All protocol observed. I am Trevor DeLandro, project manager, prime, and due to my big mouth, score was added to my program during the organization. The World Bank plan was to set up an additional score PIO. And I told them, no, that's not necessary. We have primary roads, okay, and we just add it. So that's how I ended up with prime and score. Right. Prime is primary roads throughout the state, climate resilience. Remember those two words, climate resilience, or the primary and secondary roads network in the 4 islands. Now, climate resilience of the existing primary and secondary roads. So we are dealing with existing structures under the World Bank program. Existing structures, nothing new. Go back. Prime, I call it prime 1, which is the priority. The World Bank identified one project in each state. Kosrae is the Kosrae, so that's a project by itself, entity by itself. The Yap with the 2 bridges, those are 2 new bridges. Sure, 1.5 miles of new road, and Ponape, a new bridge. So that is what I call prime 1 priority. So this is the prime 2 that the INS consultants have just submitted as our final report. So this presentation is on INS prime 2, which is the vulnerability assessment and road climate resilient road strategy. This presentation is about that. So, of what is existing in the 4 cities. And to deal with climate resilience, we have to upgrade and make adaptations to the existing road infrastructure. So, 2 components: rehabilitation, bring the existing up to its original state, and then the upgrade to cater for the difference in climate adaptation, the increased frequency of rainfall and so on. So, next slide. All right. Now, this is one sample, because it's several pages of that you have clearing of roadside ditches, and this is what you have to do, and this is the recommendation. To go through all the profiling and looking at bush cutting. So I just put this sheet. This is what is in the report that needs to be done in the existing roads in all the states. Right, there's about 15 or 20 pages like this. One is for pavement, one is for bridges, one is for culverts, one is for drains. And so this is just a sample I did. Right, out of that exercise, this is the most important, right? So, after this is a sample. P is Ponape. P is second P. So Ponape primary road has been divided into segments. So PP14 is the causeway to get to the airport. that 100%, and the priority with all the social and political inputs is the 3.2. So that in Ponape State, that is priority for the prime to do. PS, Ponape, S, secondary, 16, that is non, and 15 is the electricity, 0 for the power plant. Right, so non-Mondal and that secondary road is on the priority list to be done based on the output from INED. So they go through all their overall feasibility and then they came up with their budget. But our concern with generating projects is this. And as they go down, so they list each state has 20, we did 20 segments. So each state has a list like this. So I just use Ponape as an example. That's why we get in these projections. Right? So let's go. Right. Now, PP14, they have outlined, I guess, what they recommend to be done. So that is breaking down that PP14 monitor, what drainage, what pavement. If you're born, you would see what we have to pave. So it has pavement. That's it. No go back. That's where we have to raise the road to put in. Increase the camber, resurfacing, execution ditches. Right? It outlines all the proposed work. Go through this report and take out the information to get it into mid-level projects that are contracted. That list will be for the states to approve. But this is just a draft. They have not submitted the final draft. And I had a meeting with INES, suggesting to them that in their final report, they need to advise the FSM government how to get this information and get it into a procurement, recommend a procurement methodology to get this into construction. Because this is not suitable for design-based build. In my other presentation, changing the slide. Right. This is from INED report. Right. That this pricing that they gave in their estimate, this estimate. So they recommend detailed studies. This is what we have to develop from that and pricing, accurate pricing and prices. The only matters recommendation INED. Right? Accurate measurement and pricing. So the person to give you that is a contractor. So that sort of work out of this report is designed consultant, submit the drawing back and they send it back. That don't help us. We have to get out in the field as fast as possible. So this is just a sample of the output from the DAMCR. So that, go back. This is, hold on. Right. This is our 30 or 40 pages like this. For each chapter, the drainage, the roads, the bridges. So this is a sample. But the states will have to approve that list. So each state will have their list, and then each state goes to the project steering committee, and then the steering committee will decide what to do. But each state will, the roads PNU with each state will get their list. But that's a lot of information, but the roads PNU will do the work to filter that and present to the states a more comprehensive.
So we want to thank Trevor for talking about the road rehabilitation program. As he mentioned, he spoke specifically about the methodology. He spoke specifically about the same, and you're going to hear that coming as a recurring theme, about design build versus design bid build. All right. As he mentioned, the development banks in particular, they love design bid build. They love that you take 4 or 5 years to do a design, and then you build. The big difference between two is design build, you could get out there in 3 or 4 months. But you have to be very good at the requirements.
Let me just state, all the work outlined in the interventions, the person that designed that road out there is there. Any work to be done out on that road is adhering to standards, not design. You have nothing to choose. The curve is there, the direction is there. You cannot choose anything there. It's standards. Going from 2% to 3%. Increase the super elevation, increase in my other presentation, that is the World Bank recommends to run out faster with climbing. There's no design. There's nothing with design. The road is there. We are dealing with standards. So do not use that word, please. There's no design. It's adhering to standards, and with climate change, previously was 2% camber. They say no, use 3% now to get you water fast.
And just to add to what Trevor is saying there, we're explaining this to you all because we do expect some resistance from the bank when we start to propose these things. Because we are proposing these things in the interest of FSM, in order to get the project started quicker, in order to get work on the ground. Because as Trevor said, in the road industry, this is how projects are done. But it's not in their normal rhetoric is going to be continuing. But as he said, based on that work, design build is suited. If it was a different scope, design bid build may be suited. So there is an element of expert judgment that comes in terms of which one is suited and suitable in order for moving forward. All right. So as he said, those were basically the methodology. Some of the key things Trevor's going to be doing, I think, 4 different presentations. So you all will be seeing Trevor quite a bit. He's going to talk about the lab. I know everybody's interested in the materials lab, and so on. But as I say, we do have quite a packed schedule. Let me just allow for any burning questions that anyone has before we transfer to Maritime.
Yeah, thanks very much, and I appreciate the presentation. First, my respects to our good Vice President. I pay my respects to all of our traditional leaders across the FSM Federation, and to all distinguished guests and dignitaries who are with us for these days. I think I might have just missed it in the beginning, but who actually generates that investment program? Where is that generated?
No, a consultant was employed to do the VNCRs for time and scope.
Okay.
Finance from Magic Spoon.
Okay.
So as a consultant, that's
okay.
And
is that also the source of the economic investment study?
Yes, it's part of
same.
Yeah.
All the same.
Same report, folks.
Yeah. And then, where do those documents live? Where are they resident? Okay, they are in TCI okay, but they're they're kind of standalone documentation? Because at some point, they need to be incorporated into something.
Okay, let me give you the history.
Yeah.
That, before we get there, that is the end result
Okay.
of months of data collection that the PMU were involved in, and that is the chief negotiator that taking the picture there. So he has all the information to produce that. We have it in the PMU. We have the information. It's all lodged in the PMU.
Okay.
The raw hard data that generated that.
And the requirement that causes this to be done, that causes this effort to take place, is what, out of a state plan, out of a national plan, out of a program that already exists, and then these things are created from that?
What went out is a consultancy to do the VA it started with the VA for the primary roads. That is the scope, that is the prime project from the word on.
Okay.
VA vulnerability assessment of the primary road network. And then it expanded into scope was added.
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
It started about 4 or 5 years ago, where we started having a discussion with World Bank about the need of being on the low end and evaluate the facility. Whether they start to see a rise, increasing effectiveness. So we approached the bank to get funding for this project. And then all the scope of the project, this is a very specialist work. Analysis, data collection, and so on. So we have to have Yes. Spain on the tape all of this data collection, and some of our team part of it, Kenneth and people, collecting data, do all the analysis to generate this investment program. For every segment of the network, we know this is priority 1, this is priority 2, based on all the analysis. In terms of the repository of information, I also mentioned, there's another parallel effort going on to establish what we call a transportation data collection unit in DTCI, which will be linked to all of the states. We haven't started off that unit as we speak. And they will, that unit will be the repository of all of this information, the studies, and models, and so on. And we will work with the states to make sure that they can capacity and start with these.
Okay, then my last question would be, are these particular project or products, do they have a lifespan? Do they have a shelf life?
Yeah, what we will have is the model which will need to be updated. The process of updating is going out, and then maybe a year or two, doing another survey of the road, then a little bit more, that they can be factored into the model.
And is that the same contractor that does this work, or do we do that locally? I see. Okay.
We will have the capacity and the GIS experts. Cecilia, Cecilia, she's a GIS expert in DTCI. So we are developing the capacity that we will be able to do.
Yeah, thanks to you. And that program, as Robert mentioned, is actually broken into 3 categories of short-term program, medium-term, and long-term. So the forecast is around 15 years or so. All right, so there's a lot of opportunity for investment from there.
Can we take this? How can I show you that one? Is that something that can be easily done?
What the model that Martha has developed is developed in such a way that the states and the FSM government can go into the model. All right, let's assume Martha says 4 for a particular item. The FSM government can go in and change it to 3 to suit their. So that is the thing, but that is a template, and then the FSM government can change it to suit their environment and their condition. It's not permanent.
Yes. And to add to that, Bruce, because I know, and it's something that Robert actually spoke to us about, there's opportunities to integrate it into the maintenance program for Compact 3 eventually, which is where I think you're heading with it. So it is robust enough that any financing agency could just pick it up and have the supporting information to finance.
It's a permanent
Yes.
model to be used in the
So
in a permanent model.
Yeah.
That gets adapted to suit whatever environment you are in. It's a permanent tool of the FSM government.
So for doing that, and remember with the Compact 3, because there is no longer no Type 1 and Type 2 infrastructure, it falls in line with that. So road rehabilitation and road maintenance. Any other?
Just to inform the public, Bruce input is what is formulating that. So he's asking himself to himself.
Yeah, the states are fantastic in terms of helping us for each two more questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. First of all, I'd like to express the nation's appreciation to the assistance. Again, express our appreciation. But I think the presentation also, as far as funding sources, we're looking at infrastructure, the compact, and then the assistance from various donor countries. And I think part of the challenge for the nation is to identify which priority project we would include in our compact sector, which priorities will be included in the OTA priorities, because the requirements, as you see, are different. And I would again like to emphasize the importance of our internal planning process, perfect timing, that we're trying to revise the strategic development source. Because let me reflect, for example, for World Bank, especially World Bank, that we're, because of the classification on GDP, that we're still able to get that assistance as a grant and not a loan. And for a nation, we have to watch our debt service and obligations outside very closely too. Debt service as a percentage of GDP, which is at this time commendable, about 20% debt to GDP ratio. It's important to watch that because for the nation, again, I want to flag that as an example that we would rather fund major priority projects from funding source such as World Bank. Now, how does that translate to the exercise within the states? Because I think the states should highlight their priorities, and that's very important. The states play the most critical role in identifying their priorities, especially with respect to, and as we revise our strategic development plan, we need to take that into account. But, I was, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was in the AFTA couple project, I know there's a steering committee that decides the priorities for each of the state. And it's been a while, and I've been hearing this project for several years now, and 5 years, 6 years. I don't know if that's acceptable, but clearly you can see where I'm leading, right? We need to get these projects moving. If I've been hearing prime and score since 6, 7 years ago, my question would be, what's the holdup? And how long are we going to wait? Kosrae, I know there's only one project, if I'm not mistaken, that's the Kosrae, or the two, yeah. There's another one on the road project. And matter of fact, like an example, as far as privatization, because of this resurfacing, yet there's a project to be funded under World Bank. My question is, how long do we wait? And I would encourage, I know that there are processes and requirements to get these projects moving forward. But regardless, I don't know if I'm way off, but 5 years is a long time. And I myself ask, what's the holdup? It's just one project in any of the states. What's the holdup? And I'll just leave it at that. And I'm sorry with my big mouth, but I want to flag those. And challenges to all of you, World Bank, ADB, I have questions, same questions with ADP projects that we've been waiting, many, many years. And that's the presentation.
If I may, thank you very much, the IDP. The IDP, when we update the IDP, and Chief Falcon will notice that those segments of the IDP that are earmarked for compact funding have to be approved, right, Chief, by GEMCO. So we're going to have to do an exercise in the updated IDP to really, segment what the different sources of funding for which projects. That will be a requirement. And those that are proposed for compact funding will have to go to GEMCO for approval. Those sections of the IDP, they've been having the new projects and so on. But we even have to have a funding strategy as to this group of projects will go to World Bank, this group will go to compact and so on. And as I said, that would be a requirement. In terms of why they're taking so long, let me also say that the World Bank and ADB procedures are not easy by any means. They're not easy at all, especially their procurement. The process of, like the company that Trevor mentioned, Ines, the process of hiring a company like that can easily take a year, just 1 year, just a procurement process. You go through step by step all of the World Bank processes, and there are no objection. They have to receive no objection at every step and so on. But it's not only that. I must say that we are breaking new ground in terms of this type of project, this prime and scope. Climate resilient road infrastructure is the first in the FSM that we are doing a climate resilient road program. And this particular analysis and study that Ines did, it took several years. It took what, 2 years? It took about 2 years to actually do that study. And the reason for that is that I'm not going to blame COVID. You have to blame COVID. The data collection. We don't. I mean, and that is the reason why, as I was explaining, the chief also, setting up this transport data collection unit in the future, it's going to make life a lot easier for us, to approach donor agencies to be able to get funding for transportation projects, because we will have the basic information. These two young men, where are they? Rico and Kenneth. They work with Ines. In some cases, I was worried when I saw photographs of them hanging on that bridge, doing data collection and getting, the condition of the deck and so on. They almost risking their lives, right, Rico? But what I'm getting at, the point I'm getting at is the basic information on the assets. But now that we have it, we have it. And as I mentioned, it's going to be updated periodically, but now, so we're going to be really creating a library of very, very important information that will make it easier in the future, for future transportation projects. I hope that answers it. But we're getting there. I think we're getting there in terms of getting construction started very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Are you looking for World Bank or the DTCI? That helps.
Okay. Hey. All right. Thank. As I mentioned, there's going to be you're going to be seeing Trevor. Right. You're going to see. So for now, we're going to be transferring over to the maritime project, which is the FSM project. Before we come over to digital. All right. So I'll hand over to the project manager, Mr. Gerald Osborne, who will talk about the FSM project. Gerald.
Thank you, Shankara. Thanks to everyone here for having me. Within the FSM, as mentioned, as the project manager of the FSM project, and also today to present the second of my 6 presentations during the course of the 4 days. Okay, so let me give my respects first of all to the leadership, regional leaders, national leaders, and the state leaders. I want to get straight into the whole idea of what FSM is, first of all. And then we're going to do a little overview as to where the project is currently. Okay, so So this is essentially an update on where we are. We're going to do a definition, first of all, of a number of things that are procured during the course of any typical donor-funded project. Right, but there are a few of them that are really critical to serving the nation's needs as a whole in that specific area. And we're going to do an overview of those there on that second aspect of it. Thirdly, we're going to look at progress to date. And finally, we're going to look at next steps, where we need to go from here on in. And of course, the third aspect of it would be discussion and questions, answers, and so on. I know there's another group coming up after me, so I'll try to be as quick as possible here. So what is FSM? FSM is, in effect, briefly, a $40 million World Bank funded project. The project objective, it looks long, but it's simple really, to improve the safety, efficiency, and climate resilience of the maritime infrastructure, and operations of the 4 ports within the FSM, the 4 international ports within the FSM. So essentially, for the most part, it does not cover minor docks and so on, even though we have found a way to incorporate those. Right, I have to tell you upfront that that coming into the project after it was started in 2019, the planners missed. So over the period of time, especially during COVID delays and so on, the PIU, we took the opportunity involvement with the infrastructure development plan, as mentioned yesterday. I felt it was a good opportunity to upgrade some things to bring more value to the project from a maritime perspective. The final aspect, of course, I didn't mention, aided us in terms of providing funds during the COVID crisis. I'll get into more details later on. So these are the 4 main components of FSM: maritime infrastructure, maritime safety and security, technical assistance for port planning and project management, and the CIRC component. Now, the CIRC component was, and I'll start with that because I want to focus on the other 3 afterwards. The CIRC component was triggered after the former president declared a state of emergency following the onset of COVID. That was one of the covenants that we had with the bank. But typically, these sort of things were written into contracts now by the World Bank with the thought in mind that, hey, it might be a typhoon, an earthquake, a tsunami, that sort of thing. No one anticipated a public health emergency. Right? So there was a lot of work to do to sort of reformat and reorganize the thinking behind things like medication, equipment, protective gear, and those sort of things that were extremely helpful during that early onset of COVID. We even got, coming out of that, ambulances, land ambulances for 3 of the states, and a water ambulance for Chuuk State. So this is I hope you can, I do think you might be able to see it in the back. I won't go through details, but that's why I color coded it, right? This is a list of the main procurement activities within FSM. Let me say this, green is good, red is not. I'll go into a little more detail, don't worry. So, essentially, what we have here, component 1, essentially is the final construction. That's the final stage of the project. Don't ask me why they have it at the top, but that's how we got it. Right? Component 2 involves construction and installation of facilities also. But it also involves some very specialist type things, such as providing, they call it spill kits and container booms. The original one, this is one that we redid in terms of reference, and changed it to spill mitigation and spill prevention needs assessment, to have a solid certified expert come in and assess the needs. Following everybody had a different idea of what were the real needs for spill prevention. This was similar to this other young one here, which is the SAR, Search and Rescue Equipment. Right, so those two, basically we upgraded the terms of reference. We're gonna get proper use assessments done, and following that, there will be recommendations on equipment that is right size for each port. Right now, so the red means basically that the procurement is pending. Right, on all the construction works, obviously, we have currently we're working, we finalizing contract with, well, it's pretty much finalized. We're finalizing the contract actually for the design and supervision consultant. And following that, once they get their detailed designs in place, they'll prepare the documents, and again, it's design build. Right, they'll prepare the documents, and we will hire that contractor eventually. Right, so this would change this will eventually change to yellow and then to green. This other item here in component 2, this is gender-based violence and anti-human trafficking needs assessment. This was done early in the project, and it's already completed. That document actually helps remarkably so on those type of issues across the entire World Bank portfolio, not just FSM. And I'll come to a different aspect of procurement on that later on. Now, this is where we have most of the progress to date because of how the project is structured, because of how we basically have to do things to get towards the real construction stages. And these are the TAs, or technical assistance activities. The first one that you see there, close down. The next two there involves basically staffing for the PRU, right? And that involves, for example, Sonia and Jeffrey. It says project officer there, but we actually have now, I can say, we have a project administrator. Sonia has been promoted because of her excellent performance. And she's now project administrator working across different portfolios. Jeffrey is soon to come. He's that proficient, right? We then have the needs assessment for components 1 and 2. That's already completed too. The port strategic plan, which we talk about later on this afternoon, that's the procurement is completed on that, and we're currently doing the procurement for the actual works or the activities on the general gender-based program. And of course, design and construction supervision, we are at the very end of that stage now, where we are doing basically wrapping up the final contract. Emerging and priority issues, nothing on that. That pretty much was COVID, but those funds we were able to not touch it because the COVID funds, the COVID program was funded under component 4. Right, so the 4 I want to go for, things like safeguards and procurement specialists, right? 1 international, 1 local in both cases. As I mentioned, the PRU is 100% staffed, right? With contracts ongoing. We even have, as I mentioned, 1 person promoted based on the proficiency of her work over the years and dedication. So her position is now open, and we've already had discussions with the bank to move our project assistant, Jeffrey, up into a project officer role. We don't believe we will need any additional staffing at this time. CIU staffing program, we also, those contracts are also ongoing, and it's 100% staffed. And again, any other staffing for the CIU would come from other projects. I think you would hear that from the digital folks coming up next. Needs assessment for components 1 and 2. Again, that one is 100% completed. But there's a little caveat to that. And that contract is closed out. But there's a little caveat to that. The issue here, in fact, I'll come to the details on that later on. Right now, the institutional and governance review for port management, 100% completed, contract closed out. However, we have discussed bringing the consultants back based on the experience and the assistance that are provided during that process. We are in the process, we have agreement with the bank to form a task force so that they can help us with some implementation of some specific drafting issues, right? Legislative drafting, drafting legislation, for example, that would assist TCNI Marine Division in meeting things like international codes, conventions, and the like. Fifth item, individual port strategic development plans. That one is 100%, the procurement is 100% completed, but the actual contract is at about 80% complete. What we found within this particular item is that, again, there was, right, but bottom line is, we basically shifted, we had to shift first of all the site visits. It was still in the middle of COVID when we started this, and the consultants could not visit us. So we shifted the site visit to the right? And that provided data that very much positively affected how we would approach this aspect of the project, right? So in the process of assimilating that now and level of progress. So what are the next steps? Basically, we need to essentially complete these items. The first 6 above that are pretty much done. This one is in good hands in terms of being able to wrap it up. But the gender capacity development and training that has been incorporated into a program that covers prime and score. We just consolidated it into one for efficiency's sake. We consolidated it into one program where each project would actually fund a part of it, right? So this one, the spill prevention and spill mitigation, the search and rescue systems, which is pretty much almost done in terms of the procurement, and the design and supervision. Those are the ones that are really outstanding at this point in time. So, can we get the last item that I want to present actually is a Gantt chart to show timelines of the project and the relationship between different aspects of the project. And it's only 6 pages, so go there. Yeah, we got it yesterday. Perfect. Okay, so this is our Gantt chart that excellent. Right, so it shows, for example, from the beginning, this is project staffing. The project effectiveness date was the 14th of August, 2019. Another critical date here, the 30th of September, that's when my contract started. So I don't have anything about my actual procurement here, obviously, but then we hired, this was the procurement process for hiring Sonia. This one, the procurement process for hiring Jeffrey, right? Sonia was eventually hired on the 5th of May. Jeffrey was hired on the 30th of October in 2020, right? 5th of May 2020, 30th of October 2020. The needs assessment components 1 and 2. This is the needs assessment, the first aspect of the main works. The timeline on that effectively ran from August 2019, when the procurement actually started before I came on board. And it ended. It took a long period of time on this one because of the uncertainty of COVID. Contract negotiations dragged on and on, right? Because for obvious reasons, the recommended consultant was not happy with things like travel restrictions and possible expenses. And with contracts, it's all about risk management, right? So they were concerned that they would have to take too much of that risk if on during the process of a site visit, their employees got stressed. This the negotiation, COVID affected everything on this. You have a mouse? Yeah, perfect. Keep it right there. Yeah. Okay, so now you'll see here the field work also for the needs assessment. This in red here says unvalidated state performed field work. The states, to their credit, performed human service doing the jobs of professionals. Right? For the field work for this, we needed the company who basically is assigned the risk for that aspect of the project because they have certified professionals doing this sort of thing. Right? But the states took it upon, we requested that the states assist us with doing some basic assessments. However, we could not move forward until those things were validated. Right now, in spite of this, we went through, we got PSC endorsements of the concept options, right? And we utilized those concept options as conditional concept options. And so, in effect, then, it gave us the ability of this, which is a design and supervision. And so on, and getting a short list with conditional terms of reference, with the understanding that whoever gets selected would their first task would be to complete that validation and to refine those concept options. Right? So it seems as though we're going to start opening up again. Right? So we actually the state focal points and so on, they are cooperative and made themselves available for consultations on a regular basis. We remind them all the time. Toast can attest to that. Toast on people like Toast and Baron. At the time, I believe it was to finish this particular one because it didn't really entail site visits. It's institutional issues and governance issues on the like, legislative issues on the like. Just got affected on the tail end with COVID. Right? You notice that there's a little gap here. And again, that was a field work gap, right, where we had to just shift things down the road until things opened up. Right? Every time you see in the middle of and this one is nice because it's all on one page. Whenever you see that sort of thing, this should have been there, but for COVID. Right? This next item here, search and rescue systems. Our challenges with this and with the spill prevention and spill mitigation is that those things it's generally difficult finding experts in those areas. So we put out an EOI, didn't get any responses. We put out another EOI. The bank wanted this to be individual consultants, even though we told them, hey guys, you should really do it as a pool because it's difficult. It's going to be difficult to get individuals that could cover so many different areas. Right? But eventually, we would have been able to start it instead of advertisements and so on. We got one individual, just one individual for each of them. Next page. For the, notice the lag on the front end here now. And again, that's because we just had to keep advertising. Next page. Gender capacity, development, and training. That is coming along pretty nicely. Right? Like I said, Sonia is Sonia, with the assistance of Shankara, a lot of assistants, but Shankara actually helped to really move that forward. And Sonia stepped in and taking charge of organizing state visits and those sort of things, coordinating the program and the like. And finally, we have the design and supervision, final page. So we are pretty much at the end of the design and supervision now, and expected to go into the full design, which should run from, and the design will probably take maybe until February or March of next year. Following that, they will begin following the detailed design, they will begin the procurement of the contractor, and then they will be mobilized basically for construction. We expect construction to take somewhere about 18 months or so. And following that, there will be a defect liability period, and the project will wrap up. We expect by the end of December or so, by the end of December 2025, early January, probably first quarter 2026 calendar year. So that's basically Christmas in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. So yeah, we just want to invite any questions on maritime.
Question for those who know the terminology. I saw on your first slide, something about is it called eligible crisis or?
Yeah. Listen, that's a bank terminology, by the way. Yeah, we have grown accustomed to it. But in essence, eligibility, first of all, is triggered by a presidential declaration of a state of emergency. Right? Then there are some other things that fall into place with that. But the critical thing really is that if the president declares a state of emergency, then that makes it immediately eligible for this sort of funding. And then we go through the process. Then we go through that process of, back and forth, But needless to say, I have to admit though that considering that nobody had a clue how to deal with these sort of things, including the folks on the bank, because it was totally new to deal with this on for a health crisis, right? They were not geared for this also, right? But eventually everything was organized and pulled through. I have to tell you also though that in spite of the fact that we eventually had UNOPS during the procurement, which was probably one of the more efficient procurement agencies, especially in a time like that. But things were so bad during COVID, based on supply chain shortages and shipping being affected and so on, but there were still delays. But like I said, we still got thank God for the effects of COVID. All the critical medical equipment and supplies were already in place in all four states. We're still blessed. Yes.
In order to do what?
Any other questions? Comments?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to transfer quickly now to FSM Digital, which is the last of the TCNI World Bank projects. So we'll ask
Thank you, Shankar. May I begin by reiterating the same respects that I have noted in my respects to you all. Glenn Harris and the Department of Transportation, Communications and Infrastructure to address another critical issue that affects the progress and prosperity of our nation. And that's the need to upgrade digital connectivity and improve telecommunications infrastructure across all 4 states of our federation. It is a pressing matter that requires our immediate technological advancements. Access to reliable and efficient telecommunications services is not just a luxury, it is a necessity. and enabling social development has become fundamental to. However, we cannot deny that the FSM faces significant challenges in this domain. The remoteness and scattered geography of our islands pose unique hurdles that hinder the development of robust digital infrastructure. The lack of adequate connectivity has resulted in disparities in education, healthcare, business opportunities, and overall quality of life across the nation. But today we bring you a message of hope, a vision for a brighter future. The reality of this vision started when Congress passed the Telecommunications Act of 2014, which established an independent regulator and an open access entity. These two fundamental bodies provide us an opportunity to overcome these challenges and bridge the digital divide that separates us from the rest of the world. In addition, our donor partners have recognized the importance we attach to digital connectivity and have generously responded to support our requests for grants to support the improvement of our telecom. We are building, including the FSM, improve services, enhance connectivity, reach every citizen in our federation. Let us acknowledge the unique telecommunications challenges faced by each of our 4 states and their alliances. In that, we recognize the need to overcome connectivity issues caused by its geographical isolation. In Chuk, we must address the limited bandwidth that hampers economic growth and obstructs access to educational and healthcare resources. Pohnpei requires improved infrastructure to meet the increasing demand for telecommunication services and enable its businesses to thrive. Finally, in Kosrae, we must tackle the connectivity gaps that hinder essential services such as healthcare and emergency responses. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot afford to let these challenges define us. Instead, empower our people to unleash their full potential, irrespective of their geographical location. We open doors to endless possibilities where education, healthcare, and economic opportunities become accessible to all, no matter which island they call home. Together, we can create a future where our students have access to quality educational resources, where our businesses can thrive and compete in the global market, and where our healthcare professionals can provide timely and life-saving services, even in the most remote corners of our nation. We call upon all citizens, private enterprises, and stakeholders to join hands in this endeavor. Let us collaborate with our donor partners and ensure that these grants are utilized efficiently and transparently to achieve our shared vision. Let us embrace healthy competition and work towards fostering an environment that nurtures innovation, ensuring that all operators contribute to the development of a robust and inclusive telecommunications sector. Today, we ask that we stand together to believe in the transformative power of digital connectivity and to embark on this journey towards a future where every citizen is empowered, connected, and prosperous. For us to succeed, we must work together closely. The communication sector is one of the few areas that fall under the jurisdiction of the national government. But we all know that we cannot move forward without the support and agreement of the state governments. So the Open Access Entity, or FSM TCC, or FSM Cable Corporation, will be coming to each respective state soon to get your permission to start laying cables in line with your laws and requirements, so that every house can get connected through a fiber cable funded by grants. Also place cable landing stations in a few areas to facilitate the setup of the East Micronesia cable. My colleagues will be touching on this in the next presentation. But before I close, I just wanted to touch on the internet service that we've been experiencing since yesterday. The speed is quite high and the rates are reasonable. We are testing it for this conference. We procured it from Starlink, and we plan to leave it behind for the educational conference next week, and also for the expo later in July. And then if we can get approval from our Arabs, we'll leave it with the governor's office with a 1-year subscription so that the governor's office can use it for that time being. And hopefully that will provide some time for us to bring in the satellite subsidy provided by the World Bank. So let me close here and thank you all. And may our shared vision become a reality through our collective determination and unwavering commitment. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, my respects to the Heavenly Father for His mercy and grace to our present here. Today we'll be talking about the communications infrastructure. My department, working in the communications division. So why connectivity? Why connectivity infrastructure? Same as what Gerard said. Infrastructure, get infrastructure. I think infrastructure is everything. We cannot do communication without infrastructure. We need, communications is similar to every other sector. We need the municipal governments to provide services like healthcare and education to the citizens. And it allows us to create new jobs, new opportunities for our economy to grow. And it gives citizens better access to technology so that they can use technology in a more meaningful manner, in a more meaningful way. And I think it is in the interest of everyone that we work together to make this possible. Our vision, in order to enable all of this to happen, these three are our visions. We want to provide connectivity to everyone, regardless of where you are. We want to be able to provide training and support so that people know how to use these technologies. And finally, I think most important, now, we brought Starlink here for a purpose. This or that the national government has done, and I think with the collaboration of everybody in the nation, has allowed us to move quickly and adopt satellite technologies such as Starlink. Now, every part of the nation is able to access digital services. And we can move to cloud with confidence. And we will talk on cloud in a bit, and what cloud is. And what we are experiencing today, am I right? Can I ask no difference?
Yes.
No? It's good?
It's a good experience.
Now, this should be the minimum that you would expect. You should be getting better than this. This is what you should expect in the other islands where fiber is not there. You should have a Starlink terminal, and we still can do our work. We can access emails. We can write back and forth with the office. The main items to use. And when we put it in, we want telecom to be able to use it. We want companies like IBO and YAP to be able to use it, and whoever comes. And this is to prove, or this is to show you the network that we are a part of. This is 3,000 plus satellites that Starlink has deployed in the past few years. And this proves that we can get connected everywhere. Now we have the funding in place, we have the plans in place. We are able to get all states connected. Telecom has built its own fiber to the home, and OAE would follow up with a more resilient one, because that is what we want. We want it to be resilient. Now, success doesn't just come from building something. I think we can agree that we've had fun and service, but I think the starting terminal. This slide here really highlights our state levels because we need to cooperate. We need to collaborate. We cannot do all of this. We need to make sure. Now, the next few slides, I will touch on 3 work areas or areas of work that we at now has a new funding partners. Thanks to Australia, US, and Japan for providing our funding. And Kosrae, Nauru, and Tarawa will be connected. We have partnered with Nauru and Tarawa, Kiribati, to get this connection in place. And once this project is done in 2025, the whole of FSM would have been connected to fiber. And that is very important. Because when we deliver digital services, we want to be able. Over the weekend, we made our first payment to NEC, which is the company that has been chosen to roll out this submarine cable. And they're the same company that ran the cable from Chuk to Ponte, and I believe from Yap to Guam. So we made the first payment. That means that we have achieved contract in force, and that means that they can start moving or mobilizing their ships to come and do their marine survey, and that means that they can start manufacturing the fiber cable. Now, EMC is strategically good for the FSM. We connect through to Guam. Right now, it's just us and the Martians. And if we go in number, more people to go in to negotiate, we can get a much lower price. So this is really good. This is the way it will look once everything is done. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but way on this side you have Palau, Yap, connected to Guam, hand through all the way to our mine. And right now we have a connection between Chuk and Ponte. And then when EMC is done, we'll have a connection from Ponte all the way to Kiribati with branches off to Nauru and Kosrae. And EMC was a very good trade for us. We used or we negotiated capacity that we wouldn't have used in order to get another route, because this gives us a potential route other than Hantru. If Hantru were to be decommissioned in the future, and it places us in a really good position. But we are here, connections across the Pacific Ocean. And in January, when we were in Honolulu, the US had proposed, they wanted to run a connection from Samoa all the way up to Guam. Now, if we have EMC in place by then, the next update that I want to bring, or the work that we're also doing that is under the Office of OAE, Mr. Gordon Siegel, the CEO, is FTTH, fiber to the home. Why is OAE building fiber to the home? In 2020, the national government negotiated the agreement with the World Bank, and we've got the funding, and the purpose is to replace the copper cables that we have right now, to upgrade those to fiber. Much more faster. Now, Telecom has built its own fiber networks, but TCNI wants to have something that is more resilient, something that will be there for the long term, and that is easily expandable. And also importantly, it enables competition. It's open access. So people like iBoom in Yap can have access to this, and they can not only provide services to citizens in Yap or customers in Yap, they can provide service throughout the whole nation. And building this requires alignment with the states. So we cannot do this without the state's agreement, without the state's input. We have not built anything yet, but we are still in the planning stages. We are doing surveys, but we need to work with the states. And this is what the equipment will look like that we will be putting in the ground. We have some props that we brought with us today. We'll just pass them on so that you can have a look. These are basically empty conduits. These are not the fiber cables, but the fiber cables are run through them. And the last area of work that I want to touch on is the digital. The whole reason why we're doing all of these improvements is digital, so that we can get access to digital. Digital is the reason we have been doing all of this work. You may not know, but right now you're sitting, if you have a phone or a laptop in front of you, you are connected to the cloud. Whether you're on Facebook, you're on Google, you're on Amazon shopping, eBay, whatever. You don't have those things on your device. You merely have an app that connects you to somewhere else in the world that you access these services to. And that's what cloud is. Cloud means you no longer have to have a server under your table or on a rack in your room. You outsource all of those to professionals like Microsoft and Amazon and people like that have the infrastructure, the capacity, the capability to do security, right? They have resilient power, everything. You know, all our challenges is to understand how to use these and then make it work for us. And we have built a new digital office down in Palican. We have hired 7 officers, and these are, we call them our evangelists, digital evangelists. They will be the ones that will go out to the stakeholders, which are the states, the departments, private sector, NGOs, and they will be the ones to gather all of these information and then bring them back and then work with our subject matter experts, some of them which we have sourced already, to then define those requirements into technical realities. This is just an example of what digital can do. How you can use digital. This is a simple kind of a survey that we just did yesterday or last night. Very easy. You don't have to be a programming expert to build this. You fill it out, you submit it.
Yep.
Yes. And then it presents the information in a very easy to read and understand. You know, you can easily understand it. And these are the next steps. And this is my last slide. Right now, we are at a stage where we are ready to collaborate, truly collaborate with the states. Previously, or in previous years, when we met with the steering committee members, it was all updates, updates, updates. Now we're actually going out and collaborating with stakeholders. And part of the assessment, we have experts in policy and ID services within the nation. And we are also offering to the states that we hire digital officers to be based within the states so that they can collaborate back with our digital officers. And with that, I close my presentation and open it up to any questions. Thank you.
So we're just going to open the floor to questions. Just for a programming note, we're supposed to have 3 more presentations. We're supposed to have 3 more presentations this morning, which because we do recognize it's 12:20. So everyone's on the digital project, which I know is a very exciting project that everyone's talking about. So just open to the room, any questions?
I think this is a connecting. We're going to be connected with Kiribati. We know that Kiribati is an ally of the PROC. So wouldn't that be a danger to our national security? That's my question. Thank you.
I'm not a political expert, but I think just my opinion is we're working with the U.S., Australia, and Japan, and they are the funders, and I think I trust their that's yes we trust their guidance on in terms of security, and I don't think they would move with this if there was that truth. But that's my personal take.
Any other
Thank you. First, let me associate myself with the previous speakers and pay my respect to the traditional of this land and across the nation, the leadership of the both government, national and state and municipal government, and church leaders. I'm a bit confused and at the same time very impressed with the presentation. How we would move on with these digital, they have effect on our own telecommunications. With what you presented, some of which Telecom have also been providing, and I wonder how the sustainability of our own telecommunication, if we have to switch to the product that you presented. Second, when you make mention of the cloud, that you don't have to have a server under your desk or elsewhere, I wonder how safe and secure our information that we don't want to be shared. As you say, it's safe somewhere, or somebody is managing somewhere, or other policies that we want to keep it within. How safe that is.
If colleagues would like to chime in, I'll give them. But first, your question was about telecom and the consequences that this would. In fact, we want to work with telecom, and our vision is that this project will strengthen them, because they no longer have to worry about the infrastructure that they have right now, the copper that is there. We are offering them to use this grant-funded fiber to reach customers, not only existing customers, but even customers that they haven't reached ever before across the nation. So we are enabling them to be able to reach parts of the nation that were never served ever since communications was established in the FSM. And your other point to the data. I started out the same way. I used to think that if something is right there in front of me, that I could see it, that it's safe. But the reality is, we are no match for malicious people. Wherever you are in the world, if you don't practice security standards, they will still be able to infiltrate. I would trust experts in the US or in Australia to host my data with them. And governments across the world are doing the same thing. It's not like we're doing this we're going to be the first to put our data. And that's the way I understand it. That's my technical.
I do understand that the whole world is using it, and they are capable of securing their data, which we don't.
And that's why we outsource it. We trust people like Microsoft, like to have the security standards in place.
Thank you, Shankar. I'm like Vice Speaker, a bit confused because when I got into this process with digital connectivity, it was we started out by talking about basically placing fiber optics up to a certain point where the operator then connected up to the homes, right? But now you're talking about Microsoft assessment in the States, you're talking about placing officers in the States and all, and it seems to me like an infiltration into trying to sell. And it appears to me that FSM is trying to create its own telecommunication system by what you've mentioned so far. And I too, like Vice Speaker, is a bit concerned that we have a very small population in the FSM, and when you talk about opening up competition, I don't see a lot of companies surviving in competition in a very small population. And what happens is when that happens and you have 2 or 3 companies left to compete, what's going to stop them from colluding to have the same rate, a very high rate, if we can't go anywhere else? So I do have a concern that if we do this and we at some point begin to dismantle what works, where do we go?
I'll start with the first one and then maybe you can answer this one. There's always been fiber. Then the operators will utilize that fiber to then. That I'm talking about, I'm merely telling you what we at the national government are doing. And we are offering that to the states. If you want to be a part of it, if you want officers to be stationed in your states, the project will fund you. And the project will extend the assessment of these experts to you. But we are merely telling you that this is what the national government is doing, and we advise that the states follow in the same direction, because we think it is the best way.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by Microsoft assessment for the states?
Yeah, no problem. So the national government has chosen Microsoft to be its provider of services like email, collaboration tools, and things like that. They'll do an assessment to see what it is that, and then they'll propose how or what products or services that we actually get from Microsoft. And then train our employees within the national government to use those to then provide services out to the citizens. So that's what I mean by Microsoft.
When we talked before about connectivity of FSM Telecom, FSM Telecom pays OAE, right? And FSM Telecom, on top of that, would have to put that on top of their rate. So how does that make services cheaper for the people of the FSM?
Access to the fiber is much, much cheaper than the satellite. I tell you, when FSM moved from satellite in YAP and in True, their prices or their costs decreased dramatically. And so we believe that, and plus, OAE is not trying to get a return on its investment because it didn't invest anything. These are all grant funded. So OAE will put out the most basic rate just to keep the network maintained. Yes, it will still charge. Of course it will still charge because otherwise it wouldn't be able to. Oh, then I'm sorry.
Let me, if I may, and thank you very much, Senator, for raising those important issues. First, let me clarify, we are not trying to create a new telecom company. Actually, the national government already owns telecom. Okay? What we are trying to do is lessen the operational expenses of telecom by having grants fund the infrastructure upgrade, which is very expensive, as we all know. Because we should, by the time we're done, we should be spending about maybe more than 100 million on all these, including the EMC alone is 90 billion, right? And then the digital connectivity is about 30 million, right? So how do we get these funds in and qualify for it? Well, when we requested assistance of the World Bank, the condition was we had to liberalize the market. So we had to open it up. Now, there is certainly a concern about the size of the market, but I think that shouldn't be a concern for us because it's grant funded. So if there is no competition that comes in, then telecom is fortunate to use a cable by itself. Now, there are expenses for using the cable because there are maintenance and operational costs. So whether OE exists or not, those same costs for using that cable will exist. But these were the requirements to get in that cable. Now, we're working with telecom because we believe that by having all this infrastructure in place, they can focus their money on other areas such as cellular service, so that the expensive stuff can be funded by grants. Currently, Telecom has come to Congress to request for funding for construction of cell phone antennas, and we're thankful to Congress for funding some of those. Right? But we believe that if they didn't have to duplicate what is funded by grants, they don't have to request for public funds to put in their own cell phone, to put in cell phone towers. But certainly we welcome any comments and suggestions. We feel that this is how we can improve our telecommunications. And there's $1 million offered to Telecom to help reform and strengthen them so that they're better positioned for competition as we go. But what worries me, and I think our Department of DTCI the most, is if we don't strengthen telecom, then we're going to lose to companies like Starlink because they're coming in anyway. Even if we don't license them, our people will buy their own satellite dishes like the ones outside and bring them in. So how do we strengthen telecom? We have to give them the infrastructure because it's proven that the fiber cable is better than the satellite connection. Yeah. So that's where we're coming from. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary.
Why don't we fast forward? No, thank you very much, Eddie, for the presentation. You ever feel like you want to get into the business of selling cars? I think you're going to be very, very good at it. I'm being facetious. It was a good presentation, and I really appreciate the information that you passed along. It's valuable. I think that some of the concerns we've heard from the questions have been pretty persistent for a number of years. And there is, I think, a genuine concern over the health and sustainability. Now, I know that there are far more experts in the room on the origins and intent of FSM Telecom when it first came into existence. And it has been a great success. And we have ourselves to thank for that. But at some point in the future, even those who created and envisioned telecom saw it as something that could eventually become a privatized institution, where you'd open it up and you buy shares, and that has. But we did prioritize, and I will emphasize what Secretary Apis said. We did prioritize the intent to try and utilize some offered funding, which was and still is pretty attractive, based on liberalizing the market and opening it up to competition. Now, I don't know that there would be a lot of argument against the positives related to competition. And so I do applaud our communications experts for considering ensuring that we can do everything possible to keep FSM Telecom alive. But at the end of the day, it has to compete as well. It has to be able to compete if we want to liberalize the market. And our laws now say that we will liberalize the market. And it's been tough getting there. And I completely understand. We have this gem of an organization that this country created called FSM Telecom that nobody wants to see go away. And so I think what we should endeavor to do more is stop resisting too much and prop them up appropriately so that they are positioned to compete with anybody else. If anybody else comes, who knows? But I know there's already somebody or some couple of people in Yap, I believe, and at least anecdotally, the reports we're getting out of Yap is that that's kind of successful. So I'm not saying that we abandon that gem that was created so many years ago. Very valuable. I'm just saying, let's figure out how to help it stay and be amongst the providers. I think there's a way to do that. And I think the efforts underway now to do it are the right direction. And so I have, just like the Vice Speaker mentioned earlier, I do have my own little concerns about cyber, about the cyber world and security and whatnot. And I don't think we're done talking about that. I think that's going to be a persistent problem, a persistent challenge to look out for many years to come, because that landscape changes by the day. And the Vice Speaker brings up a very good point about, who's where and who's going to end up at any one point being the repository of any data without us even knowing. And that's at this point, I would propose that that's a more important challenge than figuring out who's going to do fiber to the home. I mean, we're worried about what's going on, and the whole thing will be for naught because we're going to get run over by cyber attacks and cybersecurity. I think that is where most of our efforts should be concentrated on securing this stuff. So those remain my concerns: security for fiber, and I don't want my message to have been, we don't care about telecom, but far from it. So thanks again very much for the information. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And to your point about security, I just want to mention that that's why we prioritize working on legislation and policy, because I think that's where it starts. The nation needs to establish its policy on how it handles data, how it stores its data, and where it is stored. And then from there, we can start translating it into technical. But yeah.
Actually, we have no interest in at this point in time. Our only interest now is get the people here. Let's not dilute the priority that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor, and that's certainly our priority. That's why we have the MC. I just wanted to add, and I don't want to prolong the discussion, the lifespan of fiber cable, submarine cable, is only 25 years without getting much of the benefits. Because it's only around 2020 or 2021 that we started the reaction from telecom to Kasavic and iBoom. So certainly we're seeing some healthy competition to move forward with better services and better rates. So that's the direction we hope to go. Yeah, but that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. It's approaching 1, so I would still say, I mean, we knew digital would have been a hot topic. So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to talk. Experience a liberalized telecom system since 1998. So we know what you're going through, and you know, a liberalized market, when it's finished, is a beautiful thing to experience. So let me just ask everyone, I think lunch is served, so everyone is invited to lunch. What we're going to do is that we're going to start back at 2 p.m. this evening to give people time, all right? And the sectoral discussions will continue with the CDAP and CPUC experience and FA. Okay, thank you.
Same question.
That's $1 million question.